Welcome back to our channel, and today's lesson is about perfect squares and principal square roots. In this video, we're going to determine whether they are rational or irrational. Let us have some examples. For the first column, the base is squared. For the second column, we will have the factored form and the answer. For the third column, we have to get the square root. And for the last column, we have to write the principal square root. Example number 1. 1 squared. In our 1 squared, 1 is what we call base. 1 squared means 1 times 1, which is equal to 1. The square root of 1 is 1. Next, 2 squared. Here we have 2 as our base. 2 squared means 2 times 2. So the factored form of this is 2 times 2. The answer is 4. The square root of 4 is 2. 3 squared, 3 is our base. 3 squared has a factored form of 3 times 3. The answer is 9. And the square root of 9 is 3. 4 squared means 4 times 4. The answer is 16. The square root of 16 is 4. 5 squared is 5 times 5 equals 25. And the square root of 25 is 5. Here we have what we call perfect squares. 1, 4, 9, 16, and 25 are perfect squares. What can you say about the square root of our perfect square? That's right. The square root is equal to the base. Next, I want you to remember that negative 5 squared is equal to negative 5 times negative 5 equals 25. Therefore, negative 5 is also a square root of 25. That is, every non-zero real number has two square roots, the positive and the negative square root. The principal square root is the positive square root. So if we want to get the principal square root, we have to write the positive square root. So these are the principal square roots. When the square root is asked, it usually asks for the principal square root. If you are asked to give the square roots, which is in plural form, we have here the s. This means that you have to give its positive and negative square roots. For example, what are the square roots of 121? So the answer is positive and negative 11. You have to give the positive and negative square root because you are asked about the square roots. But if you are just asked of square root without the s, this means that you have to give the principal square root, which is 11 or positive 11. Let us do this. What are the square roots of the following perfect squares? So we have here the given perfect squares. We have to get the square roots. So this is in plural form. Therefore, we have to give the positive and negative square root. For example, we have 4. We know that 4 is from 2 squared. Therefore, the square roots are positive and negative 2. How about 36? What are the square roots of 36? That's right. 36 is from 6 squared. Therefore, the square roots are positive and negative 6. How about 100? 100 is from 10 squared. So the square roots are positive and negative 10. How about 64? That's right, it's positive and negative 8. How about 225? The answer is positive and negative 15. And last, we have 900. It's positive and negative 30. So we have here the square roots of our perfect squares. Now let us get the principal square root. For the first one, the principal square root is positive 2. Next, we have positive 6. And then positive 10, positive 8, positive 15, and positive 30. So again, remember, principal square roots are positive square roots. Next, how are we going to know if the square root is rational or irrational? The square root of a positive integer is either rational or irrational. If the radicand is a perfect square, then the square root is rational. So you have to look at the radicand. If it is a perfect square, then it is rational. If not, then it is irrational. For example, square root of 4. So we have here the radicand 4. And as we know, 4 is a perfect square. Therefore, the square root of this is rational, which is positive 2. As long as the radicand is a perfect square, the answer is rational. Let us do the drill. Determine whether the square root is rational or irrational. If your answer is R, meaning rational, answer the last two columns. Otherwise, leave it blank. So if your answer is I, irrational, you don't have to answer the last two columns. Let us have some examples. We have the given square root of 100. We know that 100 is a perfect square. Therefore, it is a rational number. So we write R. The square roots are positive 10 and negative 10. The principal square root is positive 10. Another is square root of 15. We know that 15 is not a perfect square. So we have to write I for irrational. And we don't have to answer the last two columns. Next, you have to answer numbers 3 to 5. You can pause your video while answering the drill. Let us check. For number 3, we have 144. 144, is that a perfect square or not? Yes, it is a perfect square. So since it is a perfect square, therefore it is rational. The square roots are 12 and negative 12. The principal square root is 12 or positive 12. Next, we have square root of 625. Is that a perfect square? Yes, it is. So we have to write R. The square roots are 25 and negative 25. What is the principal square root? That's right, it's positive 25. How about the last one? Square root of 30. Is 30 a perfect square? No. So we have to write R. And we don't have answer for the last two columns. Did you get it right?